All right, thank you everybody for joining, and happy National Caregivers Month as well. I'm Amanda Dyer, the co-director and producer of the documentary Unseen: How We're Failing Parent Caregivers and Why It Matters.
And I'm Tom Dyer. I'm the co-director and cinematographer of the film.
If you haven't seen it yet, the film explores the challenges faced by many parents who are caring for children or adults with disabilities or complex medical needs. And today we're celebrating National Family Caregivers Month here in November, and using it as an opportunity to connect with caregivers and experts about important topics that matter to this community. Specifically today, we're talking about building your community as a caregiver. This is such an important topic. We all know that community is so valuable to everyone, but especially as a caregiver, it can be really challenging to build that community just with so many responsibilities, and also just the fact that your life experience might be very different from others, and that can be a challenge to build those relationships. So we're excited to dig into that. And I am joined also by Crystal Gallo. She is the founder of Innerhive, an app that is designed specifically to end caregiver burnout and help you build your community. Caregiver, Crystal. Yeah. I'm used to saying the word caregiver so much. Sorry. Crystal, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and anything else you want to share about your background.
Yeah, well, caregiver is true. This is kind of what inspired Innerhive. Certainly, my background, I grew up in technology, so I spent the past 15 years leading high growth technology companies on the back end, so product data engineering side. Um, that was kind of jumping verticals. I never imagined I would get into something that was wellness oriented at this capacity. So we ended up moving family across country during the pandemic, and that kind of kicked off my learning journey. And then what I was able to pull out of that and the inspiration and mostly the perspective I built and what it really opened my eyes to is what kicked off the need and the drive. And you sit in empathy and you realize you need to do something. You need to take action, create change. And so thus was born Innerhive.
Nice.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your personal caregiving experience. Like what even brought you into wanting to be in this industry or this focus area?
Well, I would say that it was very unexpected. So I have to imagine there's a lot of other people out there that maybe got catapulted in, or maybe they anticipated. I'm not sure. But for us, during the pandemic, we found ourselves in a crisis situation. So as you guys just hit on, we go across country quite a bit, but it is not a short journey. And there's a lot of complexity when you think about moving. And there was a crisis situation. Grew up in a multi-generational family, so had the privilege of living with my grandparents. They were really critical to my development. So when we got the call and there was a situation, we weren't in a position where we could kind of move back across the country. So we had to act quickly. We had to think about what that meant. What changes were realistic? Was there anyone there that could support them? No. What did medical access look like? Was quality of life and wellness good? No. So a lot of questions that we had, we moved through pretty quickly and found ourselves in a situation where we made the decision to move my grandmother, who had dementia, and my uncle, who had cancer, across country. Uh, that was kind of crazy because the pandemic was a whole new learning, being at home, working, new environment, travel, kaput. And then, of course, you've got your own life. And at the time, we had also brought in a special needs dog. So it was kind of a perfect storm of we'll figure it out as we go along. It's the typical, didn't do a lot of planning, had a crisis situation come up. You do the best you can, you act fast. But really, what happens is it all kind of unfolds after. And a lot of that learning is both rich because I was able to develop new perspective, but also really, really difficult. I don't think any book, person, observation, you can do some preparation on the planning front, but I don't think anything can prepare you for the emotions. Every emotion on the spectrum is hit. And I think that's where I struggled. I didn't realize how, where my threshold was for emotional stress. And that was probably the hardest part of the journey because you're trying to care for people that you love, but you're trying to be a caregiver, and they're two very different roles, and they get blurry very fast. And trying to maintain that boundary, and also trying to make sure that you've got community and people to support you and to give help and to provide time, that really contributes to your wellness. And that's really where I failed. So all that learning was really rich. Now I get to bring it forward because this is not going to be the last time I'm certain that I'm a caregiver. But that's kind of what got me into this. It was just you get in situations and do the best you can. And family's always meant a lot to me. So it was really kind of a privilege to be able to bring them in and care for them, but not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's relatable that probably most people didn't plan on being a caregiver. It's a role that often finds you, so you don't necessarily you don't know how to do it, how to be one, and how to be successful at it, and all those challenges start coming at you fast. And so it's a really common story, I think, for it to be stressful right out of the gate. And yeah, go ahead if you guys want to share anything in the chat. If you have any questions or just want to share a little bit about your experience, we always love to hear that as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. If you have any questions, feel free to pop those in, or any of your own. We're talking about building community. So if you have personal experience you want to share or something that has worked for you or is helpful, as much as we can source those good ideas from the community, I think we want to take advantage of that as well. So let's talk a bit about your focus has been a lot on ending caregiver burnout. Like that is a foundational issue and that you experience firsthand. What do you think are the biggest reasons that caregivers often find themselves in that state of burnout? And same question to the folks in the session too as well. Tell us kind of how have you been in that burnout experience? How did you get there? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, maybe I'm oversimplifying here, but I don't know. I think you can reach burnout in so many different areas of life. And for me, something I found is if you're oftentimes doing too much of one thing, like you're spending all of your energy, your time, focus, everything on that one thing, and you don't take breaks, you don't have help, you don't create space to focus on yourself or find things that kind of fill your cup, whether it's learning, relaxing, um, creative expression, whatever it is. But if you're over indexing, I really feel like it's easy. You miss the signal sometimes and you burn out. And with caregiving, you get so immersed in the role of caregiving, helping, loving, being there, supporting, thinking about safety, thinking about all these logistical things, but also how are you going to, adjust to your environment? What do you need to give them? And it's so fast because you're in it. You're so focused on them. You're in this solve it mode. You care and you have, great compassion that before you know it, you're like, I don't know, did I sleep? What did I eat today? I don't remember the last time I talked to friends. Oh, they're messaging. They want to do coffee. I don't have time for that. You're gonna like check back in a couple of years. So it's just, I don't know. When they say moderation is everything, I do think there is something about maintaining that healthy integration in life. And it's so easy. There's mental exhaustion because you're trying to process information and you're maybe not ready or prepared or organized. There's emotional exhaustion because you don't have that community, that support network, the place to get help, to have people pick you up, to find inspiration, to know what you're going through. There's financial strain for sure. And there's physical exhaustion too, because your life is changing, you're adjusting, and when you're running on empty, sometimes you feel it, and there's a big wellness impact. And so for us at Innerhive, we recognize how critical community is to unlocking that. We know that when you have community, you've got the opportunity to feel connected. You've got the ability to ask for help and seek and receive it. That saves you time. That then creates space for you to focus on your wellness. And at the core of it, when you're burning out, your wellness is impacted. So,
Uh, we had a comment that says burnout for her has a lot to do with trust. Like, can I trust people to help in the way that I need? And that's especially hard when it comes to your child. I think that is so relatable. Like, yes, you can, you need to ask for help and get other support systems in place, but you have to put so, especially when it's your child and they have these life medical supports that are needed, things like that. You have to put so much trust in someone. So I can definitely understand where you're coming from. Uh, um, and I think we focus too, like, if someone was working at their job 24/7 and was never taking breaks and didn't even take their lunch break and not sleeping enough, like we wouldn't be surprised if they were burnt out from their job. So,
Yeah.
When caregiving takes that, it's not surprising that you end up there too.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's one, a lot of people experience burnout at work, and maybe you at that point you take a long weekend, you take a vacation, and there's a solve for that. But caregivers often don't have an easy solution like that, which complicates things even further, and seems to be I mean, that's another big reason that community and wellness is such an important thing. So Crystal, maybe I'll ask you, why is community so important for wellness, when we talk about wellness for caregivers?
Yeah, I think people started to hit on it in the chat. So when you think about, getting help, you've got those few people, your inner circle that you trust. So even if you just start there, bring one person in the fold that you can lean on. When you think about community and those you trust, they're able to come in, they're able to help. You feel a little less isolated and alone. There's different types of community, right? You've got community. If I'm the caregiver, I want people around me that enjoy the things that bring me happiness, that bring me joy. So if that's hiking, if that's biking, if that's music, if that's craft, I'm going to find people in my community that can enjoy those things with me because that's going to enrich and fulfill me. Then there's community of who's the professional help, who's the people that have the skills, the knowledge, the resources, whatever that may look like to come in when you do need assistance, you need guidance, or you need someone that can really advise you on something. Then you've got the community that's your trusted inner circle. There's different layers of trust for everyone, and there's different ways that everyone can kind of contribute to helping support you. But when you've got that trusted circle, you've got that emotional support. You've got other caregivers that you can connect with. They get it. You don't need to expand on what your situation is. You say, I'm a caregiver, and they go, I understand. Like
Yeah.
instantly, they feel it. They've built the empathy. They've been there. You feel less alone. You feel validated. It's just different. You've got, different avenues of figuring out how to find that community and what it means for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think, in terms of the film, like one of the biggest things that we hoped the film would do was to um, show people that to make people feel less alone, right? To share some of these
Mhm.
stories that have common threads that other people are going through. I mean, Tyler says here in the chat, for me, burnout number one, feeling alone, making decisions. It seems like community is such a key part in making anyone feel less alone, hopefully.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's important, though, what he said there about like needing someone to make decisions. Like that may be someone in that inner circle, like that very close group, or someone that knows having someone that knows all the factors, knows the situation, and you can talk through, pros and cons. Here's what we think is going to happen. Because I can totally see where that's a difficult place to be, where you feel like you have to make all the decisions and no one else really understands what all the factors going into that are. But I like how you said, I think we're getting to one of those like practical ideas is identifying like your very innermost circle may only be one other person. So I think it can feel daunting when you think about like, I need to build a community. Okay, I need, that's 20 people around, that can be like, that's a lot of context, and that's a lot to
Yeah,
maintain. But if you think about who is that one trusted person that is willing to, come into that inner circle and take the time to understand all the factors and let me run things by them, let me tell them all the nitty gritty. So I think remembering that you don't need an inner circle of 100 people to feel like you have community. It can be just a really trusted person.
100%. And sometimes even if your family dynamic isn't of a healthy situation, you can find community elsewhere. A lot of people think, oh, it's just, my family and my best friends, but there's community in movement groups and spiritual groups. There's community in your neighborhood. I mean, there's community everywhere. And I think that's why it's really important. That's kind of what we've done at Innerhive is let's start with helping people visualize their community and their support network. Because you forget you're in crisis mode, right? Cortisol's running high. You're like, I don't even know who's around. I don't know Paul. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I'm so overwhelmed. Oh, but if you can look at a picture quickly and see, oh, here's all the people around me. People have good intention. They likely want to help. A lot of people need help figuring out how do I ask for help? It's uncomfortable. What do I help with? That's a whole nother topic. But start with figuring out like who's in my network, who's who, where are they? I mean, some people even identify community as animals, right? It may be harder to communicate with humans, and animals can still provide support and therapy and connection. And while they may not be able to help on certain decision making, they're still, just as important in terms of that's really meaningful in community, or that's really important for someone to have, their animal nearby. So
Mhm. Yeah, I want to follow up on something you said earlier too about finding community that is able, engages with you on things that are life-giving to you and feel we actually had another webinar last week about joy and about how rechargers are things that bring you joy and fill you up versus things that drain you. But I know one challenge for the 24/7 caregivers out there is like, yeah, I do love music and I love horseback riding, whatever. But like my schedule, I can't tell you the last time I went to a concert or, played piano or whatever. So I want to get your thoughts too, and like, what can that look like if you're in a phase in life where you can't just go out on a Friday night and do your hobbies whenever you want? How can you engage with people and still build those relationships in a way that's practical for a stretched caregiver? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's actually two pieces that come to mind. And I feel like one that you hit on is a lot of people don't even associate as a caregiver. They're at a stage where they're like, I'm just helping my family. And then before they know it, it becomes consuming and they don't realize that they need a community or that they need help or that they've stepped into this role or transition to this place where they've forgotten about or it becomes harder to access. And so that's even more important. And that's why it's like, even if you don't have community, if there's a way that we can help you kind of augment that and grow, whether it is finding these Zoom meetings, whether it is, joining a forum and maybe it's starting to chat with someone on there. Maybe it is virtual, conversations like this. It's little slices, but if you can have even one person and that can start to grow and you can find space, like when you get everything organized and you can get everyone aligned and rowing in the same direction, I know for me, it helped me feel more confident. It helped me feel more like I've got it all there. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I can move through crisis. I can get others aligned. I can exhale and go take an hour break and bring in help, have my friend come by, bring my mom to the aquatic center, have a babysitter come over. Then I can use the hour however I choose. But it's like you have to get the information organized. You have to get people, even just one person aligned, even if it's just something that's virtual, start there, start small. Um, find the simplest way of how can I talk to you? How can I express? Some people even start with journaling.
Yeah.
They may not be ready to talk to people. But if you can express how are you feeling, what did you do today? How did you spend your time? What do you want that to look like? Even if you start there and you're starting to have that internal dialogue and communication with yourself, I think it starts to bridge and make it easier when you can get to a place where you can connect with others, whether in person, virtually. But I mean, before that, you really got to get the information organized. You really have to figure out, are you in a good place? Do you feel confident? Have you done, you know, you do the best you can with what you know. It's never going to be perfect.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's helpful, like practical bite size. I might not be able to go to a concert on Friday night for 3 hours, but I could watch it, we could watch a YouTube video that's a recap of it or a
Yes.
clip or something. Like there's definitely ways to take something that is recharging, but put it into a perspective, a version of it that is attainable at the moment. So,
100%. And you can do it oftentimes with whomever you're caring for. Because a lot of people think about all the skills that their children or their parents or their loved ones may be losing or maybe don't have. But there's so many skills and emotions and senses that they do. And something so simple like playing a game to work through something really difficult or something that could be painful or listening to music together and just sitting there in silence. Or there are ways of like you can integrate it in, but you have to be comfortable and you've got to make that intention and it can be really hard. Um, take a shower. When you shower, turn the music on. 5 minutes right there.
There you go.
If that's your space, like, there were times when I would be bathing, but we would put music on that I would like or music on that she would like. And then there would be humor. There would be something that we could connect with, something that would lighten the mood to move through it, to make it less uncomfortable or to make it more joyful, whatever it is. Like there are different outlets. I think this is where community comes in. People that have been there, that have done it, they often have tips or guidance or here's
Yeah.
what worked, here's what didn't work. And you're not always thinking about things. You have blind spots. So it's really awesome when you can chat with others and you have an aha moment and you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, I should try that.
mhm.
Yeah, it's good. Jennifer called out podcasts in the chat, which is a pretty simple, straightforward way to, I don't know, feel like you're in the room with
Yeah,
other
I
people that you
really love
aren't
that.
necessarily are.
Uh-huh.
That's a good call.
Uh-huh. Yeah, just hearing people have a conversation that feels relatable to you and people that get it. I know there's tons of caregiver community and disability parenting podcasts that are a good way to dip your toe. Maybe you don't have the energy to contribute to a conversation at the moment, but you can listen to one and it feels like, getting to know people who get it. Cool. What about one thing
Yeah.
that's always been kind of important to me is, as we've learned more about caregiving and talked with so many caregivers, is I hear from a lot of people that say, nobody wants to help, nobody wants to get involved with our family. And I just don't know that I agree with that. I think, of course, I'm not saying it's easy to come by people who want to help or that they're coming out of the woodwork. But I do think largely lots of people are willing to help and are interested in supporting you. They just don't always know what's going on. Like, the whole premise of the film is that caregiving happens behind closed doors, and unfortunately, because accessibility is often so limited in public spaces, we don't see caregiving families. And that's really unfortunate. But part of getting that support, building that community, is inviting people into it and actually, showing them what life is like and being specific in ways that they can support you. So I just want to talk a little bit about, do you agree with that? Do you think people do want to help? Do you think I'm off base? Like, no, it's impossible to find people. What's your take on that? And interested to hear any folks talk about that in the chat as well.
I think it's really hard to ask for help. I think this is something I personally struggle with. This is, forget about caregiving, forget about being in crisis. I just suck at asking for help. Like I want to learn, I want to figure it out. I want to go through that failure. And I'll hit my head against the wall and then go, oof, I got it. Whereas if I would have just asked for help, I could have moved through faster, or someone could give me a tip, or there is richness in the learning, but there comes a time when help will accelerate. Help is so critical. And I think so many people just struggle with, how do you ask for help?
Yeah.
It can be uncomfortable. I also feel like, to your point, families are spread out. And I think everyone, if we give them the opportunity, they have good intention. They want to know how to help, but they don't always realize when you're coming at someone with a lot of questions, they don't have the mental load to think about all the different areas, or they're already overwhelmed. And so, I mean, you have text, you have calls, you have emails, you have 50-page discharge, documents that you get. It's
Yeah.
there. It's so difficult to manage. And so having one central place to put an update with your support network, your growing community, you push it out, people can engage, they can react. Basic things. This is something we're actually working on with Innerhive. We're building out the ability to ask, and we're starting with the key necessities. So people always need transportation, they always need food, in many capacities, housing. And if there's things that we can help with, everyone wants time. Time is so valuable. It is our greatest currency. And so if you can help with many of these things and it can free up time, that time that can be spent differently as a loved one, that time can be spent on yourself. And so in this community space that we have, we offer the opportunity to just say, I need help Thursday, Tuesday, transport food. People can opt in. You don't need to repeat yourself as a caregiver and tell the story a million times, because that has mental drain. You don't need to have uncomfortable, in-person conversations. You can just put it out there, and people that want to help can help. And it's not always, it could be resources, it could be time, but there are boundaries, and letting the family be able to have a space to articulate those boundaries, I think, is really helpful, because it can be overwhelming. So many people want to help, but it's like comes in like a rush sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a great call out. It's an important platform, I think, because like it's an interesting part of the human condition of like you said, a lot of people have such a hard time asking for help. But then I think there's the flip side of a lot of people that are willing to help don't really know how to, or feel a barrier of like, how do I help? And when you have both of those things happening at once, it creates this gap, right? That we're trying to fill. And it's an interesting thing. I mean, I'm sure I know caregivers deal with it on a huge scale. I think that's an interesting thing about the human condition, that gap is created. It sounds like what you're doing is trying to make that gap easier to cross for both sides, for sure.
But do
Yeah.
you find that when caregivers can figure out how to ask for help in a tangible way, that they get good responses? They
Oh
get
yeah. Oh yeah. It's very rare that I've seen when we've talked to families. So when this was going on, there were things that I failed hard at. That was one of them. So asking for help, figuring out community. I get stressed. I go into fix it, solve mode. I block everyone out. We had the opportunity to connect with over 200 families to understand families that were caring for children with medical complexity, all the way up to caring for their parents or their partners. And what I found in that conversation was there was such an emotional barrier around that help and what to do, and that trust and that confidence, and also guilt. I don't know if I want to step away. I don't know if I want someone else. What if something happens? What if I didn't give them enough information? But almost always when people asked for help, people showed up in some capacity. Whether or not that was the expectation gap, I think there's some opportunity there that comes down to some communication. But I didn't really encounter any experience in talking to other families or for myself where if you didn't express that you needed help, if you didn't show that you were vulnerable and you're breaking down so someone could step in, I wasn't met with any sort of resistance there. Is that something that you guys have experienced or have heard that when people have asked for help or where they found the opportunity that people have been like, nah, I'm good. I don't, you do your thing.
No, I think everybody has to find, the caregivers have to find the people who are willing, like, and I mean, I think they reveal themselves pretty quickly. If you make it, because so many times they're hearing, yeah, just let me know what you need. I'm happy to help. Give us a call if you need anything. And that's just so amorphous and ambiguous
Yeah.
that the caregiver is like, what do I do with that? I don't know what I need right now. I can't even, and then when the time comes, there is something, that's not top of mind. Like you don't remember who said that to you. Um, and I think I have heard from others who have said, we tried having outside nursing or we tried going to the grandparent, whatever that looks like, and had a bad experience for some reason, which is totally valid. But at that point, maybe write it off, like just completely say, forget it, I'm not asking anymore, I'll just do it myself. And while you can totally understand how you get there because it's so frustrating. I mean, I know that just from my day-to-day job when you try to get someone to do something and it doesn't turn out right, you're just like, forget it, I'll do it. Totally relatable. But that sets you up in this cycle of like, I do everything myself, nobody can help, you're isolated. People just are kind of like, if they are willing to help, they're just like, I don't know, I don't know how to get in there or what I can do that would be helpful. So I think it sets up that just that challenging cycle and that gap that we're talking about. So I guess my encouragement would be like, even if it didn't work one time or a couple times, I promise you there are people out there who want to help and can do it and can help in a meaningful way, and being willing to try to find that because the benefits will, when you get there, the benefits will outweigh that struggle to get there.
Yeah, 100%. That's something that we're trying to work through. We've been connecting with families and trying to take feedback to figure out the best way of setting up this help calendar, help space for families because we don't want it to be too flexible because to your point, people say I can help or I can do this and they're like, no, I can't think about it. No, I'm too busy. It's not going to work. But if you can create structure and you can make it super simple to set expectations and say, this is what I need help with, this is when I need help, or this is how I'm going to use this help, it removes some of that uncomfortableness and that exactly you just said. If someone offers and then they're like, I can't think about it, don't, no, I don't, you can't, it's not gonna work. And then I might feel a little less willing to ask or to offer because I'm like, ooh, I
Yeah.
was met with a lot of emotion that I wasn't expecting. I'm just trying to help. So I think there is a finesse to how you do it. We're still trying to figure that out and learn from families, like what's the appropriate boundaries. But you know, people have a child and people want to swing by and meet the child or they want to drop food off, but you're exhausted and you may not want people over. And so it's just saying, yes, we'll take the help, but 1 hour a day and this is your window. Like even something that small
Yeah.
can make such a big difference because you're not having a rotating door and then unexpectedly having guests where you're like, I don't want you right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, or trying to be clear about like, we actually don't need a visitor. We need someone to drive to this appointment. Like, what are the things that actually would be helpful and not, but yeah, no, I know it's so delicate because some people like they don't like your response and they're just not going to offer anymore or it doesn't fit exactly in their schedule. So totally understand that the challenges of asking for help and building that are totally real. But I think I still just come back to like they're out there. You just got to find them and make those connections. And that involves, putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and possibly getting rejected, but can be worth it in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's why there's different layers to community. I mean, you've got your people that you go and you do your activity and your wellness stuff with. Maybe they're going to help in a different way. Like they'll find a class and coordinate that and work around your schedule. And then you've got your close inner circle, the ones that typically take the most heat, where you're like, leave me alone, or this isn't working. But they understand the intricacy. They know they maybe got all more of that contextual information. And then you've got kind of that other layer, like you'd said, where you can go and you can put it out to the community, other caregivers who get it, who have been there. They're okay. Their skin's a little thicker. It might be a little bit different than friends and family who haven't been there, right? They just don't have the empathy. Maybe thick skin's not a good analogy, but
No, I think it's
people
true.
that have yeah, people that have the empathy like are like, I've been there, I get it, I'll come back another day. Or they've developed a resiliency and they've sat in emotion and they can see, they know where someone else is, whereas it's a little bit harder for other people, especially if those that are helping or caring for someone aren't always articulating or being vulnerable and sharing everything that's going on. It leaves a lot for the imagination to interpret. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good point.
Um, Ingrid said she's had success putting requests for help on Facebook, then it isn't directed at any particular person, and my feelings don't get hurt. That's a great one. Just being able to put out here's a specific need we have. Is anybody in my community able to hop on this? If so, great. If not, you can move on. But I think that's a great tip, Ingrid. Thanks for sharing that. Um, all right, we can switch a little bit to talk about the app specifically. I know you've really built Innerhive around these challenges, like the asking for help, the not getting yourself so burnt out because you do have people around you that can support you, and just keeping it all organized. Because I know, like we talked about, if someone says, "Yeah, let me know what you need," and you can't even think of the things that you need at the moment, that's kind of, you're stopped dead in your tracks right there. So tell us a little bit more about how, just kind of overall how the app is designed around these specific challenges that we're talking about.
I mean, first and foremost, it's really about, we understand how important it is to be informed. We know how important it is to then be organized so you can get everyone aligned. And then what we've just been talking about is the connection. So being connected. A lot of times you'll find that in different tools and different resources. And then as we talked about, different layers of community, all of it coming back to your wellness. And so just to get and allow families the ability just to advocate for what their situation is, the very first thing that we did is build this care map. It shows who all the people in your support network are. It's dynamically changing. So if you're bringing someone in or if someone's leaving, it's very easy to represent that. And it's all aspects of wellness. So it's thinking about, your close inner circle, people in your that are friends and family, maybe people that are primary caregivers, whether family or professional. You've got your community, you've got, your specialists, your primary doctors, you've got education, you've got your living. So you've got all of that in there. And then when people are kind of ready to start thinking about the future, we've even put in checklists that have kind of allowed you to think about, what is estate planning, advanced care planning, having all of that information. Like when you can understand your current situation and get organized, that's it. That's the first place to start. And that's what we did. Like, let's make it really easy for people to do that. In business, they start with an org chart. You want to know who's around me at the table, who are we working with, who's on my team, who's doing what, how are we when we encounter a problem, who's going to jump in, and how are we going to solve it together. And it's no different in life, with family, with friends. It's really important to know that. And so when you can get all this in there, I think it creates order, and then it reduces your stress. You feel more confident. You're not confused about who's doing what and where it's at. You generally, when you're moving through crisis, you can be a little bit more effective and efficient. So you're not having that high level of anxiety because you're trying to, triage information and not know who to call and not know where stuff is. So our care map is absolutely our sweet spot. That is, a visual that just gives you a quick snapshot of like, what's this look like? And then of course we get into, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, even the idea, just taking the time to create the map of all the people that you're working with, and whether that's professionals or family members or friends, or I think even just putting that down in a visual format could make you realize that you probably have a bigger community than you even realized, and can give you a place to start. Just making those or seeing where your gaps are. Like, we don't have any, we have some financial support, but we don't have spiritual support or whatever that looks like. But just giving you that visual, I think, could show you a lot about where you are in that process of building community.
Yeah, I think you just hit on something really important. We people forget who's around them, but even more important, as you're building it out, the goal is to eventually, bridge and get to a place where we're identifying those gaps so that we're getting in front of it and we're preventing. So that is something that is absolutely critical. When you can see the big picture, and pictures it's much better than scrolling I'm terrible with quotes. What's it? Picture tells 1,000 words, something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, the care map is basically your roadmap to care. And so if you can see, it makes it easier to know, like, oh, where should I spend my time and what gaps do I need to focus on? So yeah, good call out for sure.
Well, it's a
Um,
perspective thing, right? I mean, it's one thing to have all of this up here, but then when you put it on paper, you kind of get a different look at it. You get a different perspective, and you can see where some of the gaps or some of the opportunities are. It's an interesting idea.
yeah, for sure.
Um, that just kind of made me think too about we were talking about like asking for help. And one I think that is a super important part of uh, caregiver support. Obviously, they have, the daily to one thing from the film we learned was that daily to-do list can just be so long and so much longer than just an average person's to-do list that's just so daunting and so draining that, that makes sense why you need to ask for help. But what about too, community is not just asking for help, it's also just building relationships where they're not just transactional or based on a request, they're based on some kind of deeper connection. Do you have any thoughts on, how to build some of those relationships too that maybe have nothing to do with caregiving or nothing to do with help, but feel like a really mutual exchange and not just I need help from you?
Yeah, are you thinking more, so when you say like build those relationships, are you thinking like find different support groups that are support for like your emotional health, find interest groups? Like help me understand a little bit more in terms of is it the type of group? Where are we looking? What are we trying to solve for?
Yeah, or I think even I guess what I'm getting at is like just regular friendships are part of your community too. When you think
Oh
about
yeah. Oh yeah.
um like the care, I was thinking about the care map idea of, mostly for the framing of that, you're thinking about like this is who helps me with transportation, or this is who helps me with my IEP meetings, or th they're all kind of centered around like a solution to a problem. But I feel like what I hear a lot from caregivers too is that there's also just like anyone, you need friends. You need people who will send you a text and check on you. You need you as hopefully can make space to do that for someone else too. So I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on like where that factors into this whole like community building exercise.
Yeah, I've actually had some families. This is unique that you bring this up. We've had a couple of families that have a, a tighter knit circle, right? So the Innerhive is a little smaller in that it's just with their family and they haven't necessarily opened it up to friends. They're living in a really complex situation. They're a sandwich caregiver, so they've got a child with a medical complexity and they've now brought in one of their parents. They have actually had friends who have reached out and say, you know what, we know you don't have time, but maybe if you can share an update of what's going on and we can just react to it and let you know we're thinking about you and we're here and you can see that engagement. We don't need to talk. We'll talk in a week. We'll talk in 2 weeks when you're ready, but just keep me in the loop. Help me feel connected to you. Help me understand what's going on. Help me build empathy. And so we have had some families say, those relationships are important. And I've got such really good grounded friendships that they've understood and said, hey, we can take a pause from this actively building in person, but keep me in the loop on what's going on. Because if I understand and I can see and I can be there and in some capacity, I can let you know I'm thinking about you, that goes a long way. So even just that central space, like a community space where you can share an update and you can choose who it goes to. It's the support network that helps you with the care recipient, right? In your role as a caregiver, but it's also the support network, as you had said, that helps you as a person keep yourself whole, who understands you. There is still Crystal outside of caregiving, and that's just as important to nurture.
Yeah, I think that speaks to why like social media and virtual groups are so valuable, especially in a caregiver space, because I think, we all hear about is social media net positive or net negative? It's hard to say sometimes. But in caregiver circles, I feel like I see so much positive from, being able to just share about your life and share the good times, the bad times, and just have people say like, I get it, or look how cute your kid is, or, whatever that just makes you feel engaged. And when you can't always leave the house on a last minute notice to go to whatever event or group, those virtual options are a lifesaver, and I think just as valid as anything else. So, we got a question here. Is the app different? Let me see if I can understand what you're asking, Elizabeth. Maybe how does the app apply for different ages? Like if you're caring for a adult young man, I think some of your examples, Crystal, were maybe like older adults or how does it work kind of across generations?
It's the same app. It works for everyone. So we absolutely understand everyone has a different caregiving journey. They're at a different stage in life. It's just intended to help families find that community, find those resources, be the tool to help them create order and visualize the support network. So it doesn't matter if you're a parent caring for a child or if you're a parent caring for your parent. In either case, it's really valuable. It gives you a place to organize all the information, to think about what is it that I need to get through? Can I put it all in there? Who can I share it with? Who's in my support network? And then we've got a community space where you can absolutely post those updates and you've got privacy. So you can choose, different permissions of who sees what, but you can post, you can interact, you'll be able to comment eventually. And then we'll be rolling in kind of this help calendar. We also have resources. So as we hear from our community, people are really great. Knowledge is powerful. They're so great about sharing. Here's what worked, here's what didn't work. In the future, we're going to actually be opening up and creating a space where all of the caregivers in Innerhive can talk to each other. They can share recommendations, they can pin. It's like a broader social network. Because again, we want you to start with your inner circle, and we want you to grow, and we want this support network to keep building. And so that's why eventually we know that all caregivers are on a similar journey. So we want to connect to them. But we got resources that have been curated, things that people have shared and that have been successful, everything from podcasts to books to people that help with guidance to you name it, it's in there. It's a great opportunity. We just launched a new Facebook space. So a safe place for anyone that's using Innerhive to be able to talk to each other, to share, because we've gotten so much feedback that I want to find others that are on a similar journey. And we have so many people that are a sandwich caregiver that are it's hard caring for yourself.
Yeah.
Then you got to think about your parents and you got to think about your children, and then there's so many variables. And so that is something that every day keeps getting harder. And they're like, I just want a space to talk to others that understand. So we've been trying to take that feedback and trying to create these safe spaces for people to really collaborate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know there's some questions in the chat. If people are curious, like what would you recommend people start to look into Innerhive and onboard in that way?
Yeah, we're in Google Play. We're in the App Store. So you can download there. You can also go to our website. It's just www.innerhive.com. You'll see the opportunity to kind of log in, so you can use a browser version. We do have, so in terms of like data, everything is encrypted when it's either at rest with us or moving. We only have a few people that have access that are trained. So we've got permissioning and protocol in place in terms of policy of what that looks like. We've gone through the entire HIPAA compliance, so we understand how sensitive it is to work with this data. We take as much, care as we can. We work with providers like Amazon Web Cloud Service. They are the top security experts. If you've ever been to their data warehouse center, it's like trying to get into 5 different jails. You have many layers to go through. So we take a lot of care in terms of how we handle that. And we're continually improving. So we're continually looking to understand what else can we bring in? What does that mean in terms of data privacy? What does it mean in terms of integrity? But also, how is it going to help families manage their data? How they interact with their data. So,
Very cool.
Yeah, I like the social aspect that you brought up too, because I mentioned social media a minute ago, and there's definitely, like you said, there's advantages, but it can also be a little bit not always the most friendly place, or definitely not always a safe space. So being able to create your own social network of your community, your inner circle, takes that to the next level, I think, where it is a truly safe space where you can control what people are seeing, what people have access to, or communicating with just other caregivers who are going to get it. I think that could be hugely valuable in that process of building a strong community.
yeah. And for clarity, I do see someone asked, we are focused on the United States right now. So this is available. So if you're in Canada and you're trying to go to one of the app stores, it will not be available there. You can absolutely go to our website and you can use the browser version. You just won't be able to download it on your phone via the app.
Gotcha.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're winding down on time here. If anybody has any final questions you want to ask about the app specifically, or just in general, that caregiver community building, or if you have any of your own best practices you want to throw out for the group, that now's the time to pop those in there. All right, Crystal, final parting words. What makes a strong community for a caregiver? What do you think are the essential ingredients?
Ooh. Uh,
The easy one for last, huh?
yeah, I'm like, ooh.
You're making
I
your
mean, I don't know, because there's so many different communities. You've got the community that serves you, the community that serves your role, and the community that advises you on both. But I think having people that are consistent, that show up for you, that you know you can trust, because when you build that trust with people, it makes it much easier to be vulnerable, to have open and direct conversation without feeling like there's going to be judgment or any sort of negative emotional bias that's formed. Um, yeah, I think people expressed earlier, trust is so huge.
Mhm,
And I think there's a lot of different, when you think about trust, there's a lot of different ways that manifest in each layer of community that you build.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
I don't
giving
know.
people too, like as much as you have bandwidth for as the caregiver, like giving people time to kind of catch up with you. Like, I know we see a lot of, I see a lot of comments about, people saying stupid stuff to you that's just so annoying, like throwing platitudes at you or just saying offensive things. And it's just so frustrating to have to hear these stupid things over and over. That hear caregivers say like, I'm not even bothering trying to build these relationships because people are, saying stupid things or they just don't get it or they're offering open-ended like, yeah, I can help, but nothing actually tangible. Um, and I think people do that because they just don't know. And I think sometimes it may be malicious, but most of the time it's just coming from ignorance. So as much as you have patience to help people help you or help people engage with you and, say like, hey, it's really not helpful when you say that. It kind of hurts my feelings. But I would love it if you said something like this. And again, if you don't have bandwidth for that in your current state of caregiving, like that's totally understandable. But if you have the mental space for that, or telling someone like, hey, I appreciate that you offered to help, but really what we need is dinner on Tuesdays is really hard for me to put together because of our appointments. Any chance you could bring a pizza over or whatever. Just kind of having those things ready, like training people to be part of your community, I
Yeah.
think goes a long way as well. And just giving them a little bit of grace, like I said, where you have the bandwidth to do that. If you don't, it makes sense. But I think there's some possibility there if we can just train the general public of what it means to be a caregiver and how you can support and be a friend.
I think that real-time feedback is huge. I think when you think about building trust and you get that, it makes it easy to understand like what you can change or how you're making someone feel, or when you've got good intention, just listen to people, hear them out, and then understand how to adjust.
Yeah, being open is huge. All right, any final thoughts, feelings before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I'm curious to hear, if people want to follow up to either of us. I'm just really always eager to understand how people interpret community for them, what it means to them, where they find it. Do you even look to spaces where you want to connect with other caregivers or other family members that are on a similar journey, or do you look to just reflect and journal with yourself? Like, I want to know all these goods. I want to know what's happening, what's going on with people, where we can meet them, how to help them.
Yeah,
I
and
think we're both on the same journey.
you're still in the early stages of the app, I know. So there's always more features and things coming, so people can speak into what those are going to be. I'm sure, right? Like if people are saying this would be helpful, this is what we need, that can totally influence where things go in the future. Am I right or wrong?
You're right. You're 100. No, that's like when you just said a minute ago, real-time feedback. I went a million different directions. I was like, yeah, I want to know when I have food in my teeth. Yeah, I want to know if like when I show up to an appointment, I'm unprepared and I need to do something else. And yeah, I want to know what's bothering the families. I want to know what's making your day hard. I want to know how to save you time because time is precious. And if we can use that time to spend it differently for ourselves and in joyous moments with people we're caring for, like that's huge. That right there, the combination of those two, that's the crux of wellness. And so I always want to know, like, how can we help caregivers be more productive and efficient with their role without losing that humanity, that compassion, that all the things that you as a loved one want to provide for your child or for your parent or your partner. So I'm just, yeah, I want to know. I want I'm a learner at the core. So for me, more information and learning is better. It helps me kind of, whittle down and understand how can we serve people.
Yeah, Jennifer is echoing that here. Her comment, she said she leans a lot on information communities on Facebook, um, all caregiver groups, but then that helps dodge a lot of curveballs by listening to others further down the road. So I think that's totally in line. Like if you can hear someone who maybe has a kid that's 10 years older than yours or something, you can learn them
Yeah.
saying, here's what I would do differently if I could go back. And I think that is really helpful. Just the more information you can have, the better.
Yeah. Eventually, when we roll it out, I'll be excited to get feedback from communities and families. But when you're in school and you often have a tutor, you have a mentor, or you're in business and you pull an advisor, whatever that may look like, we're looking at that concept because we've actually had on the caregiving journey, it's long and it's our life. And we've had people say when they get to the end and maybe they've lost someone and they're grieving, they feel so much reward and joy by sharing what they learned and working with someone that's earlier in the journey. So we're trying to figure out how can we bring those people and their rich learning and their empathy and everything they have to offer, how can we pair them up with people that are new to the journey or need help? Because
Yeah.
I've seen micro instances of those relationships and they are so powerful when they bloom and they've created friendships that are deeper than anything else because you're in it. Like when you're at that level and you've exposed this much, like you don't get any more real than that. So that's something we're definitely playing with and I'll be excited when we can roll out and get feedback on.
Very cool.
Yeah, more features all the time.
I know.
All right, let me I think oh wait, hold on, one more question. Is the app live? I'm in the US, but I don't see it on Google Play. So do you search Innerhive? What's the best way to find it actually in the App Store?
Yep, you can go and it should be in there called Innerhive, one word, and it should be on Google Play. It's a little blue icon. We can certainly follow up after with all the links as well, if that's helpful. I don't know if you have everyone's information from registration,
Yeah,
but
yeah, we do. We'll send you an email with links. Or if you're watching this later on the website or YouTube, we'll put it in the comments. But also if you go to innerhive.com, you should be able to, there should be links to the App Store. I think I remember seeing those. Smart. So yeah, or feel free to email us, and we'll make sure you have what you need. All right, I think let's end on these words from Elizabeth. She said, community is how we thrive, not just survive. I think that's a really good sentiment. You can survive a lot, but community is really how we take it to thriving, and really enjoying your role as a caregiver and being successful. So thank you, Crystal, so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time and lots of good nuggets in here that I hope folks take with them.
yeah, this was awesome. It's really cool to see the comments and you guys interacting and engaging along the way. So thank you for giving us some feedback and being part of the conversation. It made it more fun.
Yeah, thank you guys for engaging. All right, thanks a lot. Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, guys.